Lesson 9. Funding your IBW solution. Creating an IBW plan is only half the battle. You've made the business case, now you need to make the financial case to justify your investment for your tenants and perhaps also to yourself. Funding an IBW solution may seem like a steep mountain to climb, but there's often more than one path to the summit. This lesson explores the 3 most commonly funded models for IBW solutions, as well as some of the ways they can be combined to create even more appealing options. We'll begin with the most optimistic model for small to medium-sized enterprise spaces. As always, your local circumstances may vary, so don't forget to investigate them all. It never makes sense to leave money or options on the table. As discussed in Lesson 2, wireless operators have made IBW a part of their business model since the late 1990s. Over time, funding for these initiatives has been diverted to other business priorities. As a result, wireless operators now typically only extend this support to large venues such as stadiums. This is because they provide fast, significant ROI for the operator, even where they carry different operators' traffic in addition to their own. In other cases, operators are willing to enter into negotiations to provide single-operator IBW solutions for smaller, less lucrative enterprise spaces. The downside is that only one operator's network is supported. Customers using other operator networks are left in the dark. For some enterprise scenarios, such as where only company-issued devices, all running on the correct network, are supported, this remains a viable option. However, this is a small minority of all enterprise scenarios. Successfully using the operator-funded model for IBW in small to mid-sized enterprise environments is rare and getting rarer, as tight competition forces operators to allocate expenses to more business-critical initiatives. Neutral host companies are third-party providers of DAS and small cell solutions that support multiple operators and bills those operators for IBW access. In other words, they install the IBW solution and then charge the cellular networks for the traffic that crosses the IBW. Again, there exists a hurdle in the amount of ROI the neutral host can realize from the installation and operation of the IBW solution. That is, they can't build the highway where there aren't enough vehicles to make it worthwhile. This limitation is reflected in contracts with such third parties, where there is often a clause defining a positive ROI as a requisite condition of continued operation and rights to control the physical infrastructure of the IBW solution. In spite of this hurdle, the relatively low enterprise CapEx and OpEx involved makes this an attractive option for enterprise environments. In this third model, internal funding by the enterprise, you buy it, you install it, and you can outsource the maintenance and monitoring. The operator maintains responsibility for the RF signal source, unless you're deploying a small cell, in which case the radio is part of your infrastructure and may be funded by either you or the operator. Enterprise-owned IBW can be built to support as many carriers, technologies, and bands as needed. This is particularly helpful in situations where your IBW must support many different kinds of devices on multiple operator networks, such as bring your own device, BYOD, workplaces, or retail spaces where visitors expect to access your IBW solution on their personal devices. When figuring out costs, it's worthwhile to consider that the latest IBW solutions can be integrated into an enterprise's traditional IT infrastructure, using high-end network cable instead of more expensive coaxial cable for horizontal runs. In many cases, the building may already be wired with the requisite IT cable, greatly reducing CapEx. This cost advantage can tip the balance of the budget in your favor. Overall, this model clearly incurs the greatest CapEx and OpEx obligations. The enterprise may have to commit to funding operator agreements to approve their DAS source, install a base transceiver station or repeater, or to integrate their small cell radio directly into their networks. However, there do exist opportunities to recoup some of the costs in a mixed funding model, the option we'll now explore. Considering all the ways an IBW solution can be carved up into its operational components, connections and functions, spreading around the ownership and responsibility of these parts can help. Sometimes the most practical solution doesn't fit exactly one of the three main models already described, and mixed funding models can be used to find the right balance. Typically, the mixed models arise from funding three different areas: the active IBW equipment, the passive transport of the signal, the RF signal source for the DAS or integrated radio for the small cell. Whether the IBW solution is a DAS or a small cell, keep in mind that at its core it's merely an extension of the operator's radio network and must therefore be provided with an RF signal source. DAS requires a base station or off-air repeater to connect to the macro network. Small cells have their own radio sources which must be integrated into the macro network via a fiber optic or point-to-point microwave backhaul solution. In scenarios where a base transceiver station or off-air repeater is a signal source for a DAS, the operator will generally assume the cost for that part of the network, while the enterprise owns the internal distribution infrastructure. This assumes that the operator expects to generate positive ROI in its BTS or repeater investment. Another possibility is the idea of a neutral host company investing in the IBW infrastructure and contracting with multiple operators to handle traffic, with no ownership, responsibility or investment on the part of the enterprise. However, considering the revenue conditions that would have to exist for such an arrangement, it isn't surprising that this scenario is highly uncommon. Other combinations exist as well. IBW solutions are indeed an investment, but under the right circumstances, the enterprise doesn't have to shoulder it alone. Though operators have scaled back on their initial ambition to provide virtually universal in-building coverage and capacity to venues of all shapes and sizes, there still exists opportunity to enter into mutually beneficial agreements that take some of the burden off the building owner, manager or architect. Neutral host companies also provide the potential for cost-effective, even cost-free IBW connectivity if the conditions are right and the deployment is profitable. The most important idea you can take from this discussion is that a great number of IBW funding alternatives exist. It can pay enormous dividends to properly investigate them before you determine how best to fund yours.